UCF has a golden chance to start 3-0, but to do it, they got to get past the Tar Heels.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF and Locked On Tar Heels. It's a Locked On crossover. We're hitting you guys with 2 in 1 week. Joining me on today's show is my good friend Isaac Shade, host of Locked On Tar Heels. Thank you so much, guys, for making us your first listen of every single day. On today's show, we're going to talk about what kind of game we can expect between the Tar Heels and the Knights. Low scoring shootout. What is the most likely flow of the game? Then we'll talk about play calling and what we expect there, and end the show with some predictions. We have to go on record, Isaac, and say what we think the score is going to be. We got to do it. Let's start at the top here. Are we in for a shootout, or is this going to be a low-scoring game? On yesterday's show, you and I talked about Geo Lopez and the struggles that they may have there. Hard to predict a shootout if you've got struggles at quarterback. On the other side, UCF is likely to roll out Taven Jackson, who has shown both highs and lows through 2 games. I'm sorry, they had a bye week. But in game 3, they're really hoping that he can take some steps forward. What do you see here in the flow of this game based on what UNC has done through 3 games? Do you think they have the chance to run up the score on UCF?
I don't think they even want to make it that kind of game, Mike. To your point is, let's remember who's the head coach of this football team, and let's look back to all those New England Patriots games. And what Bill Belichick cares more about is trying to find a way to win. Let me go back to week 2 when North Carolina played at Charlotte, Mike, and people were upset because Carolina only scored 20 points on Charlotte, but it's because they had a multiple score lead in the second half. Charlotte was, with all due respect, completely inept on offense. And so they just kept doing what Bill Belichick does. They would run the ball, run the clock, and then stop them on defense and force a punt. And so when you think of a Bill Belichick type team, when you think of, as you already so adequately reminded us of our other crossover where we talked about the lack of capability so far with Geo Lopez, who knows what's going to happen here. But I think Carolina will lean really heavily, Mike, on Damon Juju June. He is their breakout star freshman running back. For those who have kept tabs on North Carolina, last year, we talked about this on yesterday's show, Mike, that no more Sam Howell, no more Drake May. The bell cow last year was Omarion Hampton, who is now a Charger. They went to him early, often, and always, and he did everything they wanted to. Now, they're trying to figure out who that guy is to replace him. In week 2, Carolina used 5 different running backs in the first half. June, along with Caleb Hood, Davion Bullet Goss, one of my favorite names, the transfer Benjamin Hall, and Charleston French. Last week, Damon June started and was the bell cow all game, 14 carries for 148 yards. I fully expect Carolina to try to live on that again, and then maybe give Geo Lopez a little bit of space to get some things going with Jordan Shipp and Chris Culliver and the rest of the passing attack. That's what I'm looking for from the Carolina offense to really try to do. But that ultimately, to me, to answer your question, means low scoring is the goal here for North Carolina. What about on the UCF side, Mike? What do you see there?
Look, it was funny against North Carolina A&T. They had a pretty lackluster game offensively and still ran up 68 points. There's explosiveness in the passing game, and Taven Jackson had some drops. I will say that, like, he had some perfectly thrown balls deep beyond 20 yards, but Scott Frost talked a lot about this wide receiver group and the potential that he felt like they had coming into this season. Lots of new names, lots of portal transfers. And so far, I have to say, they have shown the ability to be able to be explosive there. Now, can the quarterback deliver the ball on time and help his receivers out, or are the receivers trying to bail their quarterback out? And I think it's going to be interesting to see what tactic they take there. Whenever you're playing another Power 4 team in the non-conference, you make no mistake, they want to try to establish the run. And that doesn't necessarily lean high-scoring shootout, right?
Right.
Control the clock, limit the other team's offensive possessions. Isaac, ESPN's matchup predictor, ESPN Analytics, giving UCF an 83.2%
Yes,
chance.
I saw that. That's crazy.
I am scratching my head, brother. I don't know if we would have predicted this coming into the season. But also I noticed the over-under at 47.5.
And a half. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe expecting a game in the low 20s.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that either. So I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. Here for UCF, I think they have the opportunity to make explosive plays in the passing game and supplement with Myles Montgomery and Jaden Nixon, the transfer from Western Michigan. But I also think that they have shown some inconsistency on the offensive line. And that probably is going to be the thing that limits UCF offensively the most in this game is that, you know how when you can't protect your quarterback and you're not getting any push in the run game, it's really hard. What we saw in week 1 was we saw Jacksonville State when they figured out Fancher couldn't pass the ball. They loaded up against the run, and they all but shut down the run game. It was tough sledding after they figured out you couldn't pass. So Scott Frost has got to try to be balanced. I think that the Vegas guys got this one right. I think this is a game in the mid to low 20s. And it could be the team with that one more turnover takes it.
Yeah. What's so funny, Mike, is you talked about those 68 points last week against North Carolina A&T. I had somehow missed this until in between our two shows that literally every point scored from a touchdown standpoint was on the ground, where Jackson was 189 yards passing, 0 passing touchdowns for UCF. Mike, that's so crazy to me. So is that more, in your opinion, as you watched that game, was that more a function of his inability to do it, or more a function of, look, North Carolina A&T can't stop anything in the running game, so you just keep doing it, and we don't need to have more of a balanced attack?
Well, he had a few drops, and I think that once you start dropping balls, you get out of a certain kind of rhythm. And I don't know that you need to prove anything versus North Carolina A&T. You just need to get out of that game healthy, and you need to not give them any hope that they're going to win the game. Nothing's more demoralizing than running the ball down their throats. So I think that's what we saw. I would caution fans that when you get games like what North Carolina had versus Charlotte and Richmond, from taking too much away from those games, thinking that that's what those teams are going to be headed into this matchup with UCF. And same thing with UCF the first 2 weeks against Jacksonville State, who was a solid football team under Charles Kelly, a solid defensive football team. But North Carolina A&T, I would not make the mistake of thinking that anything there counts for what's going to be on tape versus North Carolina in this one. Look, if you're UCF, starting 3-0 is a dream. And I don't think that they particularly care how they get there in year 1. I don't think style points matter in this game. If you're UNC, just win it. If you're UCF, just win it.
That's right.
And they're going to test UNC to see what works, and then lean on that thing. So if that is Taven Jackson throwing it 40 times a game, I think there's a chance we could see that. But if I expect them to test the run game first and see what UNC's tolerance for that run game is. And if it's working, I think that they protect the football and try to protect Taven Jackson, the quarterback, so that he doesn't have to put the ball in harm's way.
And that's what's going to be so interesting to me, Mike, because through the first couple games here, it's North Carolina's defense that has been the thing that I feel better about, that has taken more strides forward week to week to week. So I'm very curious to see that particular matchup that you just mentioned with Carolina's front, as well as the secondary, if they're able to shut down that run, because part of it is North Carolina's best player, in my opinion, defensively, is that a Washington transfer who's out on the outside to help try to stop down that passing game. And so going to be very interesting to see.
One of the things to watch here, Isaac, will be the balance of play calling in this one. How balanced will either team be? I think it's going to be a question that a lot of us are going to want answered. And hopefully what you see a super balanced team on both sides. But how balanced will they be, and what will that play calling look like? We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked on UCF is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Safety Top Plus picks awards than anyone else as of August of 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every single model of vehicle that they have. It's a great drive. It's a great car. You want to be behind one. So you can do that. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode of Locked on UCF is also brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. That's UCF guys, man. Delivering versus UNC. That's what we hope. Let's break it down. For UCF, it's got to be Taven Jackson delivering in a big way. When the fourth quarter gets there, it could come down to that one throw, that one interception not thrown, and Taven Jackson has to deliver when the pressure is on. And if you've been watching UCF the first couple weeks, you know he's got the chance to do that. So just like Taven Jackson is going to deliver for UCF, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. Play calling, the balance of play calling. I always find this an interesting topic because balance or lack thereof could point to one thing or another for both teams. Last week versus Richmond, North Carolina, 19 passes to 31 rushes. Yep. Talk to me about this this UNC offense. If Geo Lopez is ineffective as a passer, what is it going to look like? I will add, he had 11 rushes. He was the second leading rusher on the team versus Richmond in a game that they won 41-6. But as I mentioned, I would not make the mistake of thinking that anything we saw versus Richmond is what they're going to put on tape versus UCF.
Exactly.
What is this offense here? Is it a passing team? Is it a play action team? Like, what can UCF fans expect?
That's what it ultimately needs to be, Mike, is the latter of what you just said there is play action. It's been run heavy each week with week 1 against TCU, 28 rush attempts to 21 pass, 33-25 against Charlotte. And then you, of course, already mentioned the 31-19 split last week against Richmond. Geo Lopez, we've seen him start to use his legs a little bit more the past couple weeks. He didn't do that against TCU. And what I'm curious to see Saturday against UCF is whether that was from a design standpoint or just a comfortability standpoint, because I think that's to this point a big part of why Geo Lopez has not settled into nearly what we saw him be at South Alabama, is still getting comfortable at North Carolina. We kind of talked about that when we had our crossover yesterday of just the short time he's been in Chapel Hill. So what I think is going to help him a lot is moving the pocket, is play action stuff, getting him out and moving in space, allowing him to use those legs and that decision making. But Mike, the question for me becomes then, how is his decision making? Because I think one of the issues that I've noticed so far is a lack of quick processing. He's not getting through his reads quickly enough. And when he does, part of the issue is that throws that are open are either getting overthrown or, not leading well, or out to the side where receivers aren't able to come down with it. And that's been part of the issue. Yeah. So then you go to those running backs. And so that's where that balance comes in. My expectation is that we continue to see run heavier than we do pass. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you said something that I think is super important. It's something that we've talked about repeatedly with these UCF quarterbacks. It's not just about like whether the receiver catches the ball or not. The details, ball placement. Do you give the receiver an opportunity to make a play after the catch? These details, I think, are going to be super important, and it could be the difference between winning and losing in a game like this. Look, neither of these teams, I think, is going to be expected to affect the college football landscape this season. But you do have goals when you're rebuilding a program, and this is why I'm so happy we're able to do this crossover, because you have two programs who are bringing on a new coach and they're trying to rebuild culture. All right. Part of that culture is excellence in everything you do. If you're the quarterback, you can't just get the ball to receiver, man. You got to put that ball in the right place. You can't lead your receivers into defenders, and you've got to get them an opportunity. Scott Frost talked about how athletic his receivers are. Well, if you don't give them an opportunity to make a play after the catch, you're limiting your offense in a year where you need every bit of offense you can get.
That's
So,
exactly right.
yeah, I feel like this game could come down to the details. And if you show your coach early that you're going to be able to put those passes on target, then they will aim to be more balanced. And if they can't trust you, you protect the ball on the ground. And that's where it turns into one of those like, hey, we're just going to run it as much as we can. And then hopefully, if we have enough success, pull a play action and catch a guy wide open.
That's exactly right. And on the North Carolina side, one of the nice things for Geo Lopez is that while the ball hasn't been on target, it's not been in a place where defenders are able to get to it. He threw one interception against TCU, doesn't have any others. He also fumbled against TCU, and that was when he left the game. But what's interesting, Mike, is North Carolina, from a clean football standpoint, had 3 turnovers in that TCU game, and then none from the starters in either of the last 2 weeks, albeit, again, as you've said a couple times, Charlotte and Richmond, right? So there's that side of the thing. So I think part of Geo Lopez's ability to affect the game is making sure that if he's not able to throw accurately still, if he's not up to that speed yet, at least he's taking care of the ball and not costing his team possessions. That's so critical, especially as you and I are both predicting in probably a low possession, low scoring game.
Yeah, look, protecting the football definitely going to be super important. So far this year, Taven Jackson through 2 games, no interceptions. Right. So I can't stress enough that protecting the football super important here. But I think that the trust, this game is going to be about what kind of trust these coaches have in their QBs. And if you can be balanced, then you will be. If you can't, you've got to lean into what works. Is UCF going to give up rush yards on the ground? I mean, because at the end of the day, if you don't have to throw it a bunch in this game, then you're not going to. Belichick's not stupid. He's been coaching this a long time. He understands who he's got at quarterback, and he's making a quick assessment and saying, look, man, if UCF is going to give up the yards on the ground, I'm just going to stick with that. And, hopefully that's enough to win the game. If it's close, though, you may have to push the ball through the air. And that's where, again, who's got more playmakers right now? Right now, I like UCF just a little bit better in terms of playmakers on offense, which is why I think that they have a really good chance to win this one. But that being said, we've got to make predictions. Who is going to win this game? And what are the implications of winning and losing for both teams? We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked on UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NFL season is here, guys, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I have a great FanDuel story. I was putting together a basketball parlay on the Golden State Warriors, and I had 9 legs to my parlay, guys. The last leg was Draymond Green over 6.5 points. He scored 6 points and then fouled out at the beginning of the first quarter. I had $300 in bonus bets from FanDuel that I put on the single parlay that would have paid out $22,000. Draymond let me get down. I've been a Draymond hater ever since. But hey, maybe you'll hit your $300 parlay here. So if you're ready to do that, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet today. Maybe you'll get $300. That Draymond thing hurts every single time, man.
That's so painful, Mike.
I'm gonna text you the parlay after.
Okay, I can't, dude. I'm so excited.
Yeah, people don't believe me when I say, like this was a 9-leg $22,000 parlay. I put $300 of bonus bets down on, and Draymond was playing like a jerk, Isaac, and just like it was a frustration foul on an inbound. And
That's shocking from Draymond. I can't believe it.
It was so frustrating. And I was like, I've been wanting to tweet at him, like, bro, like, maybe just cut me a check for 22 and we'll call it even. But yeah, anyway, that's my FanDuel story. But hey, look, beside predicting failed parlays, we got to predict a score on this game. So if you are in a state that permits, head on over to FanDuel, man, and get your calls in on this game. But look, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. As I mentioned, ESPN.
This ain't the NFL. We can't have a tie. We cannot tie this football game.
Yeah, 83% chance for UCF to win this football game. Maybe they see what we see in terms of like potential for this UCF offense with the myriad of problems that UNC seems to have, starting at quarterback with Geo Lopez. Look, man, football is hard. I had no delusions that Bill Belichick was just going to walk into college football and just build a dominant winner. It's a different game. But with NIL and salary caps, this is more like the NFL game that it's ever been. And I'll tell you, the Patriots had a reputation for managing their salary cap in a way where they didn't overpay and they still put together really, really good squads through superior talent evaluation and development. But I don't think either one of these teams is superior in terms of talent development at this point. I do see UCF winning this game. I think that the Vegas guys got this right, Isaac. I think it's a low-scoring game that comes down to just a couple mistakes. I'm going to call this one 24-17 UCF.
Ooh, I like it. I like it, Mike. What's so interesting to me about what you just said is superior talent evaluation. Because of Bill Belichick's late coming into this thing and the inability to get ahead of the portal, get GM, I almost said Vince Lombardi, Mike Lombardi in and going on that thing ahead of time, that's next year and beyond. We ain't there yet, Mike, is where we're at. It is about playing clean football. I mentioned the turnovers and Carolina cutting those down the last couple weeks. Two other clean areas that North Carolina has been doing season long. Penalties. Right now, North Carolina is tied for 20th in all of FBS with fewest penalties per game. For an average of 4 a game for a total of 43-3. They're not shooting themselves in the foot from that regard. They've got to keep doing that. The other thing is North Carolina has been making big strides with missed tackles. Mike, 19 missed tackles against TCU. Go ahead and throw up wherever you need to on that one. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, they cut it down to 7 against Charlotte and then just 2 last week against Richmond. This is the week where we start to find out, was that fewer missed tackles number because of playing lower tier opponents or because they're making strides or maybe a little bit of both, right? And so North Carolina playing clean football is going to be key for this thing. What's funny to me, Mike, is we've spent so much time on both of these shows talking about the offenses and maybe some inefficiency or ineptitude on both sides that I wonder if we've forgotten a little bit about the fact that the defenses are going to play a big role in that. And so whichever defense is able to keep the opposing offense in that low capability that they've been so far is the team that can do that. I think North Carolina has taken some steps here. We also got to remember this game is down in Orlando. We're going to have that afternoon rain shower going, I would imagine. So We'll see how that affects things, right? Ultimately, Mike, I'm with you with a slightly higher score. I'm going to go UCF 27, North Carolina 24. So North Carolina is going to cover that 6.5, and we're going to hit just slightly the over at 51 above that 47.5. So UCF to win straight up, but I'm going to have North Carolina covering, and we'll get this thing up above the over there.
You know, Isaac, I love a good non-homer score prediction from an expert and a professional such as yourself here. Look, I mean, I don't know that I would have called this way 2 weeks ago, but now that we've gotten a chance to see what these teams are, one of the messages I've had to UCF fans is it's okay to hope, right? Like that hope, there's a fine line between hope and delusion when it comes to college football, but I think that hope is okay in this situation because Scott Frost understands what UCF is in returning to a place where he had an undefeated season. And in today's college football, that 27 UCF team would have been in the college football playoff from him. So
gosh, I would have loved to have seen that, by the way. Like, how would that team have done?
Yeah, look, man, McKenzie Milton, who is now the QB coach, was the quarterback of that team, and probably one of the more popular like staff hires that he made. Probably the most popular staff hire he made coming back here. But I feel like they are primed to do something more than what people think. Gus, I said this before, and our listeners know this. UCF fans died a slow death under Gus Malzahn.
Yeah,
I've covered 2 teams that he has slowly driven,
yes, you have.
right? Like their expectations down into the gutter, and they're traumatized by it, and I get it. But the players deserve that hope from fans. They're working their butts off, man, here to try to go out and to win for their teammates, for their school, for their community. And I think that they deserve that. Now, as you mentioned, the defenses could play a role in this one. If you're UCF, you've got 7 sacks in 2 games. I think you got to get back there and you've got to be disruptive. You have to be an absolute terror back there defensively if you expect to win. And, any win versus another P4 team it's
a W. It's a dub, man. You take it and you go home and sleep. Yeah.
So, I'm looking at it. Only 2 interceptions on the season for UCF. And so, again, you're going to have opportunities in this game where Geo is going to throw some up and you're going to have a chance to get a pick. Can you capitalize on those defensive turnovers and turn those into points? That could be the difference in the game here. Now, I'm not as confident as ESPN's matchup predictor, like at 83%. Yeah. Like my confidence is not at 83% in this one.
Hey, this is what's crazy, Mike. How about this? UCF is favored by more at matchup predictor against North Carolina than Clemson is favored against North Carolina.
Wow.
At matchup predictor. Now, part of that is that Clemson is going to Chapel Hill, but still, I was like, what, really?
Yeah, 83% though. Wow, man. Do they see something we don't? I think UCF fans certainly hope so. UNC fans probably hope they're wrong. Either way, we're going to be here to talk about it. I hope you'll come back and talk to us in the post game after the game is over. About what we see there. I would love to get your perspective after the game here. So I'll make sure you get that invite. Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels here with your boy Mike G from Locked On UCF for another great college crossover. I appreciate you taking some time to talk with me today, brother. Guys, that's it for another great edition of Locked On UCF and Locked On Tar Heels, a Locked On crossover like no other. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. It's another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation along 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts, a college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season on Fire TV and only on Fire TV. Catch us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF and Locked On Tar Heels.